Yeah, it was an interesting study this morning of watching. It's really curious. You always look at those chunk plays and what happened, and was it a coverage situation, really good route? Was it a bust? And there's plenty of questions here. There's plenty of questions, and it's funny. There was, and I'll get into the one play that they had where it was just, I think that they got caught in a situation where they were going, the Packers were trying to throw an over the top, like a max cover. We've seen the Cowboys run where they go max protection and then run it deep over. And I think the one time where you saw Gilmore where he lost Dobbs on the play, I think Dobbs just broke the route off. Because they're going to try and throw, I think they're going to try and throw the deep over to Watson, and they got it covered. And Dobbs he's heading for the inside, and Gilmore's chasing him, and then he just turns it out.
Breaks it back. I was wondering,
breaks it out.
Is that like broken play stuff? He's just trying to help his quarterback here because Love was under duress at that point.
Yeah. And that's one of those times where I was curious. I'm thinking that play went for 46 yards. I mean, that is
felt like they all did.
Yeah, that was just a huge chunk play. But it's like the Packers are saying, we're going to max this thing. We've seen the Cowboys when they want to take a deep shot, they'll keep two tight ends in, a tight end and a wing, and then block the front and then go for but the Packers are going for the deep over here, and the Cowboys actually have it covered. And I think Dobbs broke it off. I do. I think he'd said, you know what? I need to get back to the outside here to try and help. And you're right. There's pressure in Love's face, and he just lets it fly.
That's Dobbs and Love being on the same page in a way that Dak and CD couldn't even dream of yesterday.
Certainly not.
Yeah, that was a problem. And, you mentioned this stuff about CD. And I think there was a point in this game where, initially the first three times you look at, I think this kind of where things really started to fall apart when you're watching the tape for CD was they run the sprint right option. They sprint Dak to the right, and he throws the ball before Lamb is even out of his break. Just an anticipation throw. And the ball is on Lamb so quick that he can't even get his hands up. I mean, it goes right through him. He just didn't even adjust it. It just was a really, really bad look. But I think the play that really set them off towards each other, and you could tell the body reaction by both players after the play. They're going to run a play where Prescott is thinking that CD's going to run a pivot route. And when we mean a pivot, it's in and then out. And Dak throws the ball to the outside thinking it's going to be, that you're going to break, that Lamb's going to go in, plant, and then come back to the outside. Dak throws the ball there. After the play, you see Prescott walk up to Lamb and go palms up like, bro, what are we doing? What are we doing here? And you could tell that Lamb was kind of like, oh, okay, we're going to do that today. But that incomplete, where the first incompletion they had, the one where it was on third down, that's Dak's fault. Dak's got to set his feet. He's looking to his left the whole time, and Lamb's trying to work to the middle. And the slants are good against the Packers.
Well, it was the matchup you wanted on Quay Walker.
Yeah, exactly.
Cover.
Usually you can work the slants against these guys, and it works. And Lamb is trying to get to the inside, and Dak really just jumps off the ground and like overhand throws the ball with no touch at all, or no chance for Lamb to even get that ball. So all of a sudden now Lamb's thinking, okay, here we're going to do this today.
Yeah, a real lack of mental toughness or resilience to get broken down so early in that game by frustration. I know it's like a huge playoff game. It's your first opportunity to negotiate a new contract. You're thinking, I'm going to go for 200 yards against this, and things aren't going well. Take a breath. you know, and there's still plenty of time to get on the same page. I didn't know if he was more frustrated with the ball placement or the play calls or whatever, but there was a point where he cracked a joke and made the Green Bay Packers defensive back laugh. And I'm like, man, I would love to know what that joke was.
Well, it to me, just watching the tape and the disconnect that they had early in that game was, but I think it started with that. It was like you had the first two that were incomplete, and then you had that pivot, and Dak's kind of like, when Dak's going palms up, like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You're supposed to go. I threw the ball where you're supposed to be.
But Dak was so bad, late in the second quarter, he's doing that to Ferguson.
Yeah.
Ferguson would have had to transport himself instantly from one side of the defender to the other to make the catch.
Right.
It's like, what could Dak possibly be asking Ferguson to do in that situation? It was the worst look to throw that ball.
Yeah, and then Dak starts pressing.
Yeah,
and when Dak starts pressing, you get the turnovers.
Yeah, and then CD wants it so much that what was that throw? You have a really inaccurate Dak who could not make great reads throughout the game, and then he started forcing it. That's when you knew it was over.
I think the interception that allowed to be the pick six, Heggie and Mike were talking about it, and Heggie brought up he thought that Dak was forcing the ball to CD because they run double slant.
Yeah.
And Savage, the safety, is on Cooks, and really CD's route wasn't great on the slant. It wasn't like usually CD will come off the ball and it can really sell it, but it was kind of, he came off with a little bit of slowness to it, and Dak trying to get him the ball or force him the ball to get him going. I think that cost you an interception. I think it cost you 6 points.
What'd you think about Cooks' route as well on that interception? I mean, he was getting interfered with. They didn't call.
He got mauled.
Yeah.
But you know what? Dak threw the ball where he thought he was going to be. The Alexander was not going to let him inside, and I mean mauled in a way of like, if it was Bland playing one of their receivers, we'd all call it great coverage. I thought it was great coverage. He just did not let Cooks get to the inside on him, and Dak threw it where he thought that Cooks was going to get to, just didn't get there. The Musgrave 38-yard play where he was wide open,
just all by himself.
Yeah. Looks like the Cowboys are playing what we call man free. And this is where you play man coverage underneath and you play with a free safety in the middle of the field. So everybody's got a man underneath with Curse as the middle of the field defender. He's the actual free safety on this particular play. And so what it appears to be is everybody's in man. Wilson doesn't play it as man. And if I'm reading this right, he goes outside instead of going with his guy, instead of running with Musgrave. Musgrave starts on the left side, and then everything is kind of flowing to the right, the Cowboys defensive to their right. He's going back the other way. Wilson's got to carry him in coverage, and that's why that thing was so wide open. Wilson stayed on the other side of the field. Musgrave went to the opposite direction, and that's why the ball got thrown back. Actually, what they did was that it was off of play action. They had run back-to-back plays before that where they gashed the Cowboys, and they went play action off that. And then it turned into a huge play. I think that's Wilson's fault completely on that play, that he's got to carry that guy. The one other play I wanted to get to real quick and here in my notes, if I could. The way that Jones, the TD run he had, the first one, if it went for 9 yards. Well, okay, let me do the 27-yard run he had. Mozzie got turned out on the play. Bell jumped inside, and then Curse didn't see the ball, and then Gilmore had to try and rally. That's kind of what the running game was for the Cowboys yesterday. A lot of getting turned, jumping, but the Packers did a really nice job of taking the ball, like we talked about earlier, at Bell, trying to run at him, knowing that he couldn't hold up. But they did a good job. Hankins was on the ground quite a bit in this game. Osa was on the ground. Cowboys had a really hard time. The double team blocks, they didn't get off any double team blocks yesterday at all. the move tight ends that were able to they cut Parsons one time, and that allowed a big gap to go inside. They cut him, and now you got a linebacker jumping around the block, and there's this huge hole. But it's just like what we talked about, the way that Jones was going to run the football. It was going to be find the hole, cut back to the hole, and then make your play from there. And they did a great job of that yesterday. They blocked the Cowboys very, very well up front.
Well, if I'm Green Bay, I really like where we're headed at quarterback, and I love our coaching staff, especially against the Cowboys. You know, I don't know how good of a job they do scouting up and game planning against the other teams, but this is 2 years in a row that when the Cowboys came around, they seemed to have all the answers.
They had a really good plan of how to attack. They knew that going up the middle of the field, especially with those big plays, you know, when you play Curse as the true free safety, that first Dobbs play that went for 22 yards was Curse playing, and they carry 3 guys go running with 1 guy, and then all of a sudden now you're in a situation where you've got a receiver right in the hole to make the play. And that happened a couple of different times.
Is this therapeutic at all for you, Zach, talking it out? Or are you still in that dark place? You know?
The dark place is probably going to be for a little bit.
Yeah. Probably a couple days, couple weeks.
Days.
Couple months.
Hopefully days.
Right on, buddy.